Hello and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell,
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
and today our special guest on the Mitchell Show is the Honorable Rushern Baker. Mr. Baker attended Howard University and got both his undergraduate and law degree from there, his law degree in 1986. After law school, he enlisted in the United States Army Judge Advocate Corps, served from 1987 till 2001. He was an elected member of the House of Delegates from 1994 to 2003, and most recently served as the seventh county executive of Prince George's County from 2010 to 2018, and most recently was a Democratic candidate for governor. So, Mr. Baker,
Thank you.
how are you
Well,
doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here. I
That's
should say this.
Yeah,
Let me let Patrick go. Sorry about that.
No,
Patrick.
no, I'm more interested in what you have to say than me running my mouth.
A point of personal privilege, if I could,
Yeah,
Clay. I want to thank you and your dad. Little thing that your dad actually appointed me to my first committee in Annapolis on the environmental committee when I took over from Paul Pinsky when he was a delegate. And it gave
wow.
me a start, quite honestly, at the General Assembly before my colleague came in 1995. And what I was able to do, thanks to your father, he didn't have to do this. He certainly could have just, let the process fill out. But it allowed me to go into Annapolis and get a running start before everyone else on a committee, seeing what it's like, understanding the surrounding, and it allowed me to kick off my career in the right way. So I am beholden to the Mitchell family and glad to be here with you guys on this show today. And anytime I can spend time with Patrick Gonzales, I try not to. No, I'm just joking.
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, Rushern Baker is one of my bestest, closest friends on this earth. I don't know if he feels the same way, but I think it's close. And I am just so happy to have Rushern with us today. And I always kind of like breaking things down to a personal level. And what Rushern has accomplished professionally, that goes without saying. But, I think Rushern and I about exactly the same age. As
Yep.
you can see, I'm a little bit older.
Not much.
But I'm just so excited with life where it has taken us, and most specifically today. Rushern's successor, Angela Alsobrooks, who's current county exec, is now running for Senate. And Rushern, I would just love to get some of your thoughts on where you and I, but more importantly, Prince George's and Angela stand today, about 6 weeks out.
I think she's in good stead. I know there's some issues coming up now, but I think given her record, coming through a tough primary, something that County Executive Alsobrooks, has not faced before. So coming through that primary with Trone, Congressman Trone, who spent a lot of money, I think
I got to interrupt real quick. He kicked $63 million, but sorry.
But this gets to our relationships, Patrick. You and I were talking about the election and during the primary, and I think we were probably two of the few who thought that she was going to walk away with this primary, even when she was behind in the polling. One of the things that I noticed from having run for governor, and I know Patrick, you said the same thing, is that you get an understanding of the state. And it was always my understanding that if she could do well in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, then and Patrick, you told me this when I ran for governor in 2018. He said, "Brother, if near the last 30 days of the campaign, if it starts shifting the other way, then the tidal wave is going to come in." And it happened to me in 2018, and I think that's what happened to Trone. And so it set it up for a tough race with a very popular governor. But I think she's going to pull it out. And I think it's at the end of the day, my guess would she wins by 7 to 10 points.
And I think that's fairly amongst a certain block. I think that's a very consistent opinion. So, Clay, what do you think?
I think that's the right observation. Obviously, I've seen Patrick's polling, and it's just my gut feeling that I think 7 points is certainly a probability. I think that the enthusiasm for Hogan, especially on the far right side, has diminished
Yeah.
over time. It wasn't what it was when he did the Change Maryland campaign 10 years ago. So my money would be on also Brooks to win this by at least 7.
And that,
Yeah.
Clay, is kind of the tightrope that the Governor Hogan has to walk. He's got to kind of recognize he needs 30% of Democrats to win statewide. Mathematically, nothing else works. And every time he kind of walks that tightrope to gain some of that Democratic support, is he perhaps kind of turning off a little bit of his base?
Yeah.
And every vote he loses in the base, you got to make up for among either an independent or it's a very difficult challenge. But I'm very excited to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, for Governor Hogan, what is different between this race and the others is one, changing times. You're in unfortunately for him, for Governor Hogan, the national politics are going to play in Maryland.
Exactly.
Who would have thought, 10 years ago, you notice Clay and so does Patrick, 10, 20 years ago, Maryland Senate seat, no one ever thought about. It's not important. Maryland's not important. But now it is, because you have such a tight race on the Senate side and control of the Senate throughout the country, that a place like Maryland is someplace where the Democratic National Senatorial Committee is going to play. She's actually getting national money because they can't afford to lose this seat when they already lost West Virginia, or going to lose West Virginia, and possibly could lose Ohio on the Democratic side. And so I think a barrage of hitting Maryland for also Brooks. And at the same time, the thing that most Marylanders like about Governor Hogan was his stance of being an independent, not being part of the, Trump, wing of the party. But now he's found himself an outcast when he needs that national money, and they're thinking, well, no, we're not going to put any money in Maryland. We're going to go put our money in Ohio and, these other places, Arizona and places like that, Florida, where they have a tight race, that's become tighter. And so I think all those things, the national politics has come back to bite the governor. And I think places he counted on before, like Montgomery County, are just not going to be there.
County executive, you hit it perfect. And I don't want to say that this is the most apt metaphor, but in walking that tightrope, Larry has had a little bit of becoming neither fish nor fowl. And that's part of what he's trying to capitalize on, being an independent. But it's a very tricky, difficult route.
I was going to say on the deep red Eastern Shore here, I've seen the television ads, and when you say you're un-Trump and you're for Roe v. Wade, the base gets turned off by that. And I think the only thing that makes them come out to the poll, hold their nose, and hit the switch for him is control of the Senate. I think that's what he has going for him on this side of the bridge.
No, Clay, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's the one thing he can hang his hat on. But let's say, the choice issue, I think for him, I don't know. I mean, you hate to second guess people, but I probably just stood my ground and say, here's what I believe in, He's not going to get any Democratic votes that believe, he has now changed his mind. And I think those Western Maryland and Eastern Shore, and even some of the folks in Montgomery County and Charles County, probably who are pro-life, would have said, we can hold our nose and vote for him and know that he's going to be independent. But I think they made a calculation on their campaign, in the Hogan campaign, that this was an issue they thought they needed to take on. I don't agree. I don't think it was a winning issue for him.
Right.
I agree. And Rushern, I mean, I think what we're seeing is authentic Larry Hogan, but as I've observed you for 30 years, Rushern Baker, every time he stood before the elect, that was authentic Rushern Baker.
Right.
He didn't get caught up in the authentic frontier gibberish that we political consultants try to tell our clients to go with all the time, because voters ultimately aren't stupid. They want to know who the person is. That's been Rushern Baker his entire political career. And while I think I don't have a different suggestion on how we should have handled it, but it's got a little bit of too cute by half with the abortion issue. And Rushern, I totally agree. When in doubt, just go with who you are and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the one thing people say about Trump, whether you like him or dislike, he is who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
He's authentic. He is genuinely that person.
Genuinely, were you going to say genuinely obnoxious? I don't know. But he is what he is.
And if I could, I mean, one of the things, I got my Howard shirt on, for Kamala. I didn't know her in undergrad. I knew her, but I didn't know her well. But the thing I remember about her, some 40 years ago when we were both on Howard's campus, is that the same person, the same laugh, the same, she's a really smart econ major and was involved in politics. But that same personality, when I saw her 30 years later when we were at a function together at Howard, she's the same person. She is who she is. So, and I think that's, kept her in good stead in California, when she was attorney general, district attorney. I think the only time she messed up, and I think she's recovered from this, is when she announced she was running for president. And in 2020, and tried to be a progressive, which is something she wasn't. She's a pragmatic prosecutor. So, you just can't get caught in that trap. And I think that's what hurt her campaign at that time. And I think what you see now is who she is. So people who are like, oh, she's, a left-wing San Francisco liberal. No one in San Francisco or California, anybody believes that. They believe she's a hard-nosed prosecutor. She believes in justice reform. So I say all that to say, I think what's helped her along in this campaign is she's gone back to being who she is, not listening to people who try to, pull the Al Gore on her, where they change your shirt and stuff like that and try to make you look different than who you are.
One thing, Rushern, going back when you were running for governor, one of the things I thought was great was your crime plan that you were trying to develop, especially as it pertained to Baltimore City. You had, I think, the best ad of the entire campaign, where you're walking along the street and you said the reason that crime is so bad is because no one gives a damn about these kids. And that struck home, that resonated, I think, and raised that issue up to where I think it's part of the larger public discussion right now. Patrick, you've done polling in this. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And that gets back to Rushern Baker being the type of politician, the type of human being that isn't going to hide behind phony baloney idiocy. He's going to put it forth. And there are two different opinions. There are those that believe that the way to best help a 12, 13, or 14-year-old who's out jacking cars and things even worse is to talk to them, make them feel secure. And there are others that believe, no, the best way to help that child is to let them know at that point You must at some point accept responsibility in your life if you want to have a happy life. Because based on my experience, I have never met a human being that didn't basically own their own responsibility
Mhm.
and have a habit. It doesn't work. I mean, maybe it does, but I've never met anyone that does that. So, I don't pretend to know what the answer is ultimately, but what I do love is that Rushern Baker in that ad put it right out and let people decide.
No, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that, Clay. We were very proud of that commercial because as Patrick said, it came from what we did in Prince George's County. Is we took an issue that was very controversial, especially during those times, and went at it head on to say, we're not paying attention to this because of who these folks are and where they are. And whether people like what I said or like the commercial, they couldn't ignore it. And I think you see that now with the mayor and with the governor. It became part of the conversation. One of the things that we talked about during that campaign is in the beginning, no one talked about crime in Baltimore City. And by the time we were getting ready to exit the stage, we were at the last debate, and everyone had a crime plan for Baltimore City.
Right.
So we're proud of that. One of the things I tried to do as county executive, and I tried to do as a legislator, and I think this is important, is really just put these critical issues that are hard to deal with out front and say we have to pay attention to it. And I think that's one of the things that I look at Annapolis now. I think the changing dynamics of it from when your dad was Speaker of the House, Clay, and when I was there, was that these folks who held these positions, whether it was Speaker or President of the Senate, like Mike Miller, they understood that part of their job was also to affect every part of the state. So what was going on in Baltimore, what was going on the Eastern Shore or Western Maryland wasn't just simply those folks' problems. It was, it was ours. And they used the resources of the state to make sure that we could be in the best economic position possible, and fighting, crime and making sure this public safety was part of it. I hope we get back to that, to that caring about those areas, and not just saying, hey, that's something for Baltimore City or Baltimore County or Prince George's County to deal with.
I think taking care of the crime problem, especially in Baltimore City, would help them economically because there's a lot of people outside, say 10, 20 miles outside the city that are afraid to go in.
Hmm.
And as you say, if people started giving a damn about these kids and help them and do something for it, whether, obviously sometimes punishment is needed, but the other time is they don't know what opportunities are out there. If they're shown that, I think that goes a long way in helping the city come back to what it once was, which was a great American city.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's vital. I think that's our future as a state runs through Baltimore City. And it's because you can't leave that potential untapped. It's like I like to say here in the county or here in, the Washington area, is that if Prince George's County isn't carrying its weight, it doesn't matter what happens in Montgomery County or DC or quite honestly, Northern Virginia, because one of the biggest available land masses and opportunities for economic development is not doing all that it can do. And no one's going to invest in a place where they don't feel safe. And so for us, it was, hey, we're trying to solve the crime problem because it's an economic problem. And it will help us put the resources and give the folks the help that they need.
Patrick, you have a final question for the
Yeah,
Honorable Rushern Baker?
no, yeah, I do. I love Rushern Baker.
And Patrick, I love you back.
Okay, I'll get out the guitar now and we'll all sing. I'm just kidding. Well, Rushern, we appreciate you being here on the show today. We are sure to invite you back. Don't you worry about that. And we'll follow up with our discussion and we'll talk what happens after the election about what happened during the election. So it's time to say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick. And Rushern, thank you once again. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.